All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Again, my name is Dane Balsman. I'm urban fisheries biologist with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, and one of my primary job responsibilities is overseeing the FINS program. And if you've ever heard about the FINS program and wonder what it is, it's an acronym for Fishing in Neighborhoods. So, brief background, I started in 2009. At that point, we had 5 lakes in the program. It was still in the early stages, still a pilot program. Since then, we've expanded to 44 lakes and 28 counties around the state. So it's grown quite a bit in the last 10 years. So what is the FINS program and how does it work? Well, the biggest thing about the program is it's partnerships that make this program successful. So most of the lakes in the FINS programs, Fish and Wildlife does not own. So we partner with local governments, that city parks, county parks, and there's a lot of great water bodies out there in these parks. But a lot of these lakes either were closed to fishing before, or they had such high fishing pressure that people weren't catching many fish, and if you don't catch fish, you don't go back. So again, it's a partnerships that we partner with them. We provide fish, we stock fish, we provide technical guidance, manage the fish populations, and they keep access maintained, keep the park mowed, have restrooms, other amenities at these parks. So without our partners, the program wouldn't be what it is. So why do we need a FINS program, or how did it even come about? Well, we started to see, like a lot of other states, a decline in license sales. And that's troubling for us as an agency because we depend on license sales to stock fish, manage fisheries, law enforcement. Everything that we do as an agency, we depend on license sales and taxes on hunting and fishing gear. So when we see a decline, that alarms us. The reason people were getting out of fishing, we found, was that they had said 2 reasons. I don't have a place to go fishing and I don't have the time. So the FINS program gets at that. We provide easy access in these city parks to a large population of people where they don't have to travel far to go fishing, and there's really no barriers. It's very accommodating. All the amenities are there. It's very family friendly at these lakes. And then the biggest thing is you got to, again, catch fish when you go to these ponds. If you don't catch fish, you're not going to go back. So that's kind of the FINS program, how it came about and how it started. I'm going to talk to you about what the FINS program is, what we stock, different things, but I want to first point you to the webpage. If you go to fw.ky.gov, and under the fishing tab, there's the fishing in neighborhoods. We've got a lot of great information. I encourage you to check that out after you get done here today. On that webpage, if you don't know if you have a FINS lake near you, we've got an interactive map that you can find directions to the lake closest to you. We put the stocking schedules up there so you know when fish are going in, how many fish are stocked at each lake. So we've got all that information on there, as well as links to buy a fishing license, a booklet if you've never fished before and want to know how to fish. We've got that there, as well as fishing regulations. So check out the webpage. There's a lot of great information, and it's a really good resource if you're wanting to know more about the FINS program. Here's a list of lakes, and it may be somewhat hard to read up there, but again, if you go to the website, we'll have a list of all those lakes. But we've got 44 lakes in 28 counties, and if you look, there's a table similar to this on the website of all the fish we stock and how many and what months. So go to the website, but primarily we're stocking rainbow trout and catfish are the 2 primary species, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that right now. So for the catfish, for the FINS program, we stock close to 123,000 catfish annually. These are large catfish. This is what we call a put and take fishery. Again, these lakes get such high fishing pressure that we have to stock catfish in where they're already a keeper size. So we stock 123,000 catfish. That's over 60 tons of catfish each year. That's a lot of catfish. That's a lot of fish food. If you tuned in earlier this week, Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery, the crew out there was feeding some of the fish that'll be stocked later on going into the FINS program. And we stock 2 different kinds of catfish primarily in the FINS. We stock channel catfish, and then we also stock what we call a hybrid catfish, which is a cross between blue catfish and channel catfish. And that's the only place in Kentucky those fish are stocked. Many of the lakes in the FINS program get stocked 4 times annually, primarily in the spring, March, April, May, and June. Some of the lakes, depending on access and amount of fishing pressure, only get stocked twice during that time. But again, we stock a lot of catfish for the fins program. I'm going to walk you through the process a little bit just to kind of understand how these catfish are harvested at the ponds out at Pfeiffer Hatchery. So there's these big 1 acre ponds, and there's about 10 to 12,000 catfish in these ponds. And they take this big seine, they go all the way around the pond with tractors, and they seine these fish up. In the back of this seine, there's an opening to what they call a live car. So the fish get pushed to the back of that seine and into this live car. Once they're in that live car, we have this big boom truck. We concentrate the fish down, and we put the fish onto the truck and take them inside the hatchery. The fish that we miss with the seine are the water's dropped down out of the pond, and the fish are in the kettle, and then again we carry those up the stairs and take them inside to the hatchery. Once the fish are in the hatchery, we weigh and measure them to figure out the average size, and then load them on the truck to take to Fins Lake near to you. As you can see, it's pretty labor intensive, requires a lot of effort. People got to be close to each other. So due to that, the April catfish are actually going to be delayed this year, just with social distancing restrictions. We're not going to be able to stock those in all the places in April. We do plan to make those up later this summer, but for right now, the April catfish are going to be delayed. Trout for the program all come from Wolf Creek Federal Fish Hatchery, which is down below Lake Cumberland. We stock about 120,000 trout annually. Those are stocked during the cooler months. Trout will not survive year-round in these lakes. So they're stocked in the fall, either October, November, and again in the early spring in February and March. Again, these fish are about 10 inches average size. Several years ago, we went to raising slightly larger trout for the fins program, and we've had good feedback on that. So trout and catfish are what we call put and take fisheries. Again, we're stocking those at a keeper size and allowing anglers to harvest them if they want. There's also bluegill and red ear sunfish in a lot of these lakes. And you'll see pictures of them. The one on the right is a red ear. This is a basket full of bluegill. We've also got some displays here on the table of these two. But a lot of these lakes have really good sunfish populations. And coming up here in late April, early May is a great time to get out and fish for these fish. They'll be up spawning. It's great to take a kid fishing, and they can be really fun to catch, especially for kids. So everybody likes to see big bass pictures, and I will tell you, most of the Fins lakes have some really good bass in them. That picture on the left is just shy of 10 pounds. And this picture on the right is 2 5 or 6 pound fish from Louisville. So I can name a number of lakes that have some really good bass in them. So again, these fish see a lot of baits, get a lot of fishing pressure, but there are some really nice fish in a lot of these lakes. So again, bass may be overlooked at Fins ponds, but again, there are some really good bass in a lot of these lakes. So regulations for the Fins program. We try to make this easy and keep these standardized. So if you go to a Fins lake, it's going to be the same regulations at every lake you go to. We encourage people to harvest fish if they want, but these limits are more restrictive than the statewide limits, and we're trying to spread out that harvest for as long as we can. So you're allowed 5 rainbow trout, 4 catfish. Largemouth bass are expensive and difficult to raise in the hatchery to a large size. They cost a lot more, so we don't stock a whole lot of bass, but we try to protect them through regulations. So you're only allowed to harvest 1 bass over 15 inches. And again, these limits are to spread out the harvest so as many people can enjoy these fisheries as possible. Who needs a fishing license? If you're 15 and younger, you don't need a fishing license, but if you're 16 and over, you will need a statewide fishing license. If you're 65 and older, you can purchase a senior license. If you do keep trout at the Fins lakes, you'll also need a trout permit. But again, if you're under 15, you don't need that trout permit. It is also included in the senior, disabled, and sportsman's license. We'll also mention first weekend of June is free fishing weekend where you can fish any water body around the state and you won't need a fishing license. So if you go to the website, you look up fins, but there's not one near you, fear not. I would also encourage you to go to the website, again, under the Fisheries tab, find a place to fish. This is a great resource that you can search by city, by county, and find public access, a fishing spot near you. If you click on any of these lakes, we'll list the lake size, bank access, boat ramps. A lot of these lakes will have the depth maps, so you know how deep the pond is in different places, as well as if we put fish attractors in, we'll have that on the website on some of these lakes as well. So if there's not a fins lake near you, go to the website, check this out. This is a great resource that will be turning into an app as well very soon that you'll be able to download. But go to the website and find a place to fish near you. So I'm going to get into what a fisheries biologist does here, but before I do that, I know Andrew Wooldridge, aquatic educator, spoke earlier this week on how to fish, and I think he covered that pretty well. I will say the biggest mistake I see people making at fins lakes, somebody that's new to fishing, is not knowing how to set up a rod properly. So a lot of times I laugh when we're out there and I'll see a bobber in a tree, and you'll see a bobber that looks about like a volleyball, and you'll see a big weight and a big hook. This is a little bit over exaggerated, but if you're new to fishing, you want to downsize. So you're really limiting yourself on what you can catch if you set up a pole like that. Whereas again, if you're new to fishing and don't know how to set up, just a basic setup of a split shot, a small hook, and a bobber, and basically a red worm will catch most of the fish in these ponds. So it doesn't have to be anything, you know, anything high tech. Again, a lot of people catch fish. Just place a bobber, 2 to 3 foot, a split shot, and a small hook. Red worms, night crawlers work really well. If you don't want to go to the store right now to purchase bait, go in the backyard, turn over some rocks, and you should be able to find some worms this time of year. So if you're new to fishing, that's the best setup I found for just introducing somebody new to fishing. So that's a quick rundown of the fins program. I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about a fisheries biologist. So if you're interested in becoming a fisheries biologist, what does that job entail and what do we do? Well, a big part of it is managing the fish, but it's also about managing people. And you have to kind of strike a balance between the two. And here's some of the tools in our toolbox that we use to manage fisheries. So as I mentioned, we stock fish. And we stock quite a few fish for the fins program, but as a biologist, you have to know what fish need, where they need to go, and what species will thrive where. So we have hatcheries that spawn these fish. So you need to be a good biologist. You need to really practice in 3 areas. You need to have good math skills, science, as well as writing. At the hatcheries, I use a lot of water chemistry, taking readings out there to know what the water quality is. But we stock a lot of fish, and that's one of the tools in our tool bags as a biologist. And you have to know what's in these ponds. So a big part of the job is sampling fish populations. And for different fish, there's different gear types that we use to sample fish. So here on the left, you'll see on the front of that boat is a big pile of nets, and those are hoop nets. And we use those for sampling catfish, specifically channel catfish in a lot of ponds. So I've got one set up over here, and what we'll do is we'll set 3 of these nets. We'll tie 3 together, and what the fish do, they swim in here in the front of this net towards the back where we have this big pile of stinky cheese, and those fish get in after that bait. And I don't have any cheese back there today, but they get in after that bait, and then they can't find their way back out. So we let those set for a couple days, and fish get in there. Then we come out with the boat, we dump them, we take weights, measurements, and figure out what kind of condition the fish are in, what the size structure looks like, and again, helps us manage on if we need to stock fish or change regulations, anything like that. So that's a hoop net. That's one of the gears that we use for sampling catfish. Here on the right, you'll see a boat with people with some bass in it, and this is our electrofishing boat. So there's a rail around the front, there's a generator in that boat, and it produces electricity. So there's two big booms that come out the front of that boat, and it shocks the fish, and they float up. It doesn't kill them. We put them in the live well. We take lengths, weights, measurements, and see what the fish populations look like. Both these gear types and any gear type we use is not going to sample all the fish. It's just a subsample of what's there. It gives us a snapshot of what the fishery looks like. But we're able to, again, use math and science to figure out what kind of condition the fish are in, what the population looks like from that subsample. Regulations. So as a biologist, you have to set regulations, and that's, again, managing a healthy fishery and balancing with what people want, allowing for harvest, but not allowing people to take too many fish and overfish the fishery. So it's striking a balance between keeping a healthy fishery and keeping people happy. One of the other tools that we use is surveying anglers. So if you've ever been interviewed by a creel clerk when you've been out fishing, they may ask you, what are you fishing for today? What have you caught? And that gives us an idea, again, for what people are catching, what their opinions are, and if they're happy with the fisheries. So that's one of the other tools that we use to manage fisheries. And then one of the last tools we have is tagging studies. And we've used a few of these at Finns Lakes to tag fish, and we know how many fish are tagged, and we want to see how long those fish are lasting in the population. So what percentage are being caught, how many are being harvested, and how long after stocking are those fish staying in that system. So we've used these at Finns Lakes on several lakes, different kind of tags for different fish, but gives us an idea for again, how long those fish are staying in that pond and allows us to adjust stocking rates.
We have questions coming in. What is the best bait for a trout in a Finns Lake?
So trout will bite on several things, and it kind of depends on how you prefer to fish. If you're an active fisherman, you like to cast, inline spinners like rooster tails can work really well. If you're a more passive fisherman, prepared baits like a power bait or trout balls work really well. Fishing those, again, with a split shot either on the bottom or under a cork can work really well. There's also a lot of trout, and this may surprise people, caught on corn. You can buy a can of corn and a small treble hook or a small hook and catch trout on corn as well.
And we have another one. When will the stocking schedules be available again?
Well, due to COVID-19 right now, that we are not posting those stocking schedules online, and we're just following the governor's recommendations on that. We don't know. At this point, we don't know when those stocking schedules will be posted back online. But again, in the past, we've always stocked or posted those stocking schedules a week or two before those fish go out. So I suspect that'll be the case again, that we'll post those schedules before fish go out. But again, that'll probably depend on the social distancing restriction being lifted before we can harvest those fish.
We have one more. Are the Finns Lakes still open at this time?
Most of them are. So if you go to the fw.ky.gov, we have a COVID-19 link. And we've got all the fishing, hunting related information on there. There are a few that have closed. So we've got 44 lakes in the state. I believe currently there's 4 that have closed, and those are Anderson County Park, Three Springs in Bowling Green, Mike Miller Park out in Marshall County, and Kess Creek Park in Mayfield. They're the 4 that I am aware of that have closed. We'll keep that updated. If any ones do close in the future, we'll let you know. But currently those are only the 4 that have closed. And mainly those were, they just had to shut down the park, I think, for other people not practicing social distancing. So I will tell you, it's a great time of the year to get out and fish. The weather's turning nice. I encourage you to get out, and you can still fish at Finns Lakes. Practice common sense, use social distancing. But if you've never caught a fish or want to try a new place, check out a Finns Lakes. Again, I like seeing kids catch their first fish, but they're also for older people that may have mobility issues. Very family friendly at these lakes. So get out, enjoy fishing, check out a Finns Lake, but also be a good steward of that resource, and a steward someone that takes ownership, takes responsibility, and pick up after yourselves. Leave it in a better place than what you started. And again, don't leave your trash laying around. So I encourage you, get out, use these ponds, and enjoy the fishing.